Let's take one more look at the JUMP data, and this time we're going to learn about a new term called a measure of spread. You'll see over here on the left-hand side that we've learned about all three measures of center, ways to describe or ways to find one number that kind of represents in general the rest of the numbers. Well, when mathematicians are describing data, another way that they describe it is by the range, which is an example of a measure of spread. So the range is not meant to tell us a number that might kind of describe the middle, but instead it tells us how far the data is spread out. So let's take a look at how we do that. So if we want to find the range of a set of data, we're going to find the difference between the biggest and smallest pieces of data. So it's really helpful that these jumps were already put in order. And so I'm going to take the biggest piece of data, that was Mr. Merck's jump at 91, and then I'm going to take the smallest piece of data, that was Miss Bowen's jump. Remember, she was pregnant, so a small jump was a good idea for her. And I'm going to subtract the smallest jump from the biggest jump. So I have aligned them vertically. You could also do this step on a calculator if you wanted to, but I'm going to set it up like a subtraction problem and go ahead and subtract those two. So I need to, thinking about 1 minus 9, I don't have enough to take away 9, so I'm going to regroup from the tens place, and this will become an 11 because I've sent over a 10. 11 minus 9 is 2. 8 minus 1 is 7. So the range of this data is 72, and that tells us that the smallest piece of data and the biggest piece of data are spread out 72 steps apart. Let's look at something that'll show us what that actually looks like with a picture. So here's a number line, and I'm going to make so this is like where they started to jump. And remember, Miss Bowen was able to jump to 19 right there before the 20. Okay, let's actually put it down like this. And then Mr. Merck was able to jump all the way at 91. So I got to go way down here. Wow. Notice how they are really spread apart. That's a big distance between them, or a big range. And we can check with our number line to see just how far apart they are by using this little jump here. So I'm going to put it here, and then I'm going to stretch it out to go all the way to 91. That's the range, how the distance between them, or the difference between, we can see is 72. So their jumps were 72 inches apart. And again, that's the same number we got from doing 91 minus 19. Cool. All right, so let's try it with our ages of people in the family. Here's Miss Boss family again, and remember the oldest person in her family is 63, and the youngest person in her family is 22. So I'm going to set them up like a subtraction problem and find the difference between the biggest and the smallest, and when I subtract, I get 41. So the range of her family is 41. The oldest person and the youngest person are 41 years apart. And in my family, here is Mr. Prophet, and here is my son Trip, who's the youngest one in our family. I'm going to line them up, and then I'm going to subtract biggest minus smallest, and I get 0 in the ones place, 3 in the tens place. Here's something else cool, is that my son Trip always talks about how they are always 30 years apart. That every single year they're going to still be 30 years apart, and the range between them is 30. So every single time that Trip thinks about his age, he knows that his dad is 30 years older than that, and that's how old his dad was when he was born. So you might be able to think about those same kind of things with the range in your family and see what that might be between the oldest and the youngest. All right, here is something that you can use to remember what the range means. This is a picture that you have in your mind for range. I always think about the range as the difference, or a way to find that would be the biggest minus the smallest. So I drew the first two letters R and A really big, and then I'm taking away these small letters, NGE. So it spells range, but the biggest letters minus the smallest letters, just like I would do the biggest number in our set of data minus the smallest number in our set of data. Maybe that picture will help you remember what range means. Okay, we have now learned all of these different vocabulary words. We've learned these measures of center, numbers that can use to describe the middle of a set of data, and we also have learned now how to find the measure of spread, which is the difference Difference between the biggest and smallest pieces of data.